in the army, it doesn't matter. In the service, it doesn't matter the background that you come from. We all merge into one pot. Kargil brought to front our mettle, our capacity to change a diverse situation, our capacity to overcome, and our capacity to conquer.
There's a guy called Colonel Ranade who had reported that infiltrators have crossed into India 1 year before Kargil started, 1 year before. And he was flying a small helicopter there on a mission for something else. So he had gone and reported this. Unfortunately, no heed was taken to what he said.
When you talk about Kargil War or pre-Kargil, we have 1998 Operation Buddha Smiling. India was not very keen on having this nuclear capability. We were asking other nations to provide us, but unfortunately, we were given sorry from all places. We were told no.
So, ladies and gentlemen, a formal welcome to all of you. We have flagged off what we call as the Mac City VOW Lit Fest. Just about an hour ago at the NGMA, we had the official launch with Sri Amitabh Kant as the chief guest. We are very fortunate to have two iconic places in the city, NGMA and Kitab Khana, as our venue partners. So there are parallel sessions going on. NGMA, Kitab Khana. It was lovely to have this in Kitab Khana, which is a very buzzing place. And so thank you for all of you who've taken the time out to come today. I would request you that we have some more sessions here today and tomorrow, and we have sessions continuously in NGMA. So pura iska anand uthaiye, as we would say. So enjoy the fun. Lots of books being discussed. What is different about Max City VOW Lit Fest? We are themed on geopolitics. Very quickly, in about a minute, I'll explain what that means. We feel that Mumbai, India's buzzing city, financial capital, a municipal corporation that has the highest budget, a budget more than many states, somehow, while it has many things going for it, is not adequately interested, or so it would seem, in matters of geopolitics, international relations, diplomacy, military, security, war. All these policies, maritime, trade, nuclear, missiles, all these seem either not to have Mumbai in it or Mumbaikars not interested in that. So why should Delhi alone determine foreign policy? I think all of us as citizens should have a say in issues that engage the nation. So the issues that engage the nation is our theme for this year's Lit Fest. And we thought it would be great if we could have Mumbaikars join in that conversation. And therefore, we said let's have a literature festival, because literature festival is all about conversations, as Sanjeev Chopra, our fellow organizer, said in the event at NTMA. So in that spirit, ladies and gentlemen, we got three books here, very different kind of books. And now these are not the sort of books you would normally see fronted in bookstalls. They're not written by celebrity people. And yet I believe they make certain invaluable contributions to literature in India, to studies, strategic studies in India. And they've been told uh, in a very nice storytelling way. So I have with me three authors. One is author editor. To my right is Air Commodore Nitin Sathe. Nitin Sathe sir has been writing for a long time. He's a blogger, he's a writer, he appears every day. Many times something topical happens, he's writing. He has written several books. He was featured in many lit fests. We are primarily discussing two of his books today, Born to Fly, and the other is about how a lonely outpost in the Andaman and Nicobar recovered after the tsunami of which he was one of the architects. And he's written about that. Please remember, this is 20 years after the tsunami. How many of us remember that? To my left is Dr. Soumya Awasthi. She is the author and editor of this very lovely book called India's Nuclear Titans. Now, not many of us, yes, we all know we had nuclear power and all that, but who made it possible? How was it made possible? Who are the people who, of course, all these are teamwork, but who are the faces? Today you are asked to relate India's cricket team of 1983 World Cup, we will all know. But if I tell you, please tell who is the team behind the nuclear blast of 1997, none of us would, or very few would, right? So, who are the people behind that? And this is science and technology, but told in a very nice way by Soumya and her co-author, co-editor. And to my left, extreme left, my old friend from National Defense Academy days. They're of the same batch, same squadron in NDA, Colonel Ashutosh Kale. He's been there, done that, commanded his unit, a hardcore infantry soldier who followed that to the corporate existence and then got out to writing. And this is his third book, Rambo. And Rambo is about one person, one hero, one great warrior, but who in a sense typifies the ethos of both an Indian and a Fauji, good Fauji. So we have, as you see, something common but dramatically different. So we have three authors, and I'm going to have them talk with me, talk with you after a bit. Let me begin, Ashu, with you. The, it is often rare that when we talk or write in the armed forces, you usually write biographies or life stories of generals, of senior officers, of those who have commanded armies, or you would write of a respected senior. In your case, you've written about a gentleman, unfortunately no more with us. He died for the cause of the country. You've written about a gentleman who did not do all that and was also much junior to you. So what made Colonel Ashutosh Kale write Rambo?
Thank you, Shrikant. Lovely to meet all of you here on a Saturday morning. It's true, I have not written about someone who's based senior to me or known very well outside the army circles. Major Sudhir Walia, Ashok Chakra, Sena Medal Bar, was a man just about 30 when he died. But he probably achieved more in those 30 years than most of us achieve in a lifetime. I have not written this book because he displayed conspicuous acts of gallery time and again. I didn't write this book because he displayed courage way beyond his years. I didn't write this book because he was the ADC to the Chief of the Army Staff when Kargil War broke out and he volunteered to go and fight on the heights of Kargil and probably led the last attack in Kargil just a week after landing up in Kargil and died a month later leading a raid on a militant hideout in which he got shot 6 times over. But I didn't write it for that. I wrote it because the acts of courage and valor that he displayed are beyond the fathoms of most ordinary men. I wrote it because this story gave me the option to explore the unfathomable notion where the will to survive gives way to the idea that death will serve a greater purpose. It is to explore that moment. And the story is about him, but there are also other characters in the book. And each of them displays an act of heroism which is very replete from the rest. Heroism is not just facing bullets or leading a charge. Heroism is standing there firm when everything else is breaking around you. That unpredictability, the chaos, making your way through that. Heroism is self-sacrifice, where you want to sacrifice yourself for the survival of your team. Heroism is standing firm in your decision. Heroism is when just an act, with just a glance or an eye contact or probably a finger will make you lose a life of a comrade Because in cricket, at best it can be a wrong decision. Here, if you do this and the man goes and attacks an LMG or MMG and has a burst in his chest, he might end up dying in your lap. So it's these acts of heroism that I wanted to display, and which is a very large context. So that's the reason why I wrote Rambo, and that's the why the book is here today.
Lovely. I think you have framed it very well, and you talked of different shades of heroism and different shades of courage. So, Ekota Sathe, I'll go to you now. Take off what is said, that there are different ways in which heroism is admitted. And I think your two books, your first book is about a person who displayed great heroism from a hospital bed, so to say, or a rehabilitation center. A great guy who, unfortunate accident, pulled down. That's about a person. I thought next one is about how Gar Nicobar recovered from utter devastation of tsunami and was able to rebuild itself. I'll come a little later to how these accounts are not written about enough in the Kalpi. But just tell us, since we're talking of tape, so courage reflected in your book is what I would call as resilience. Talk us through a little bit more about the resilience that you see in these shades of heroism that Kale talked.
Right. Thanks, Shrikant. And very good morning to you all. Incidentally, the Tsunami book was written before Born to Fly. So the story of resilience of a group of men who built Car Nicobar back after the tsunami was written first as a diary of events that I started writing when I was there. I was there just 2 days after the tsunami hit the Andaman Nicobar Islands, and I saw with my own eyes what a fury of water can do. And thereafter, I saw with my own eyes and I felt with my whole self what a set of 70 people sent from all parts of the country get together, build a team, and do what they did in the year that followed. So that was the story of being there and living through it and seeing things. Everything is gone around you. Everything is so negative around you, and trying to build positivity out of that. I think that was a story of a set of armed forces personnel who got together, who were made to get together rather, and build back what was taken away by God. Although we couldn't, of course, a lot of lives were lost, and salutes to those guys who fought the fury of the water. The second thing that actually most of my stories, in fact, the short story books as well as the one I'm going to speak about, Born to Fly, is all about resilience, and this is one thing that all of us build over time. Not only in the armed forces, all of us who live lives build our resilience to whatever we face in our lives. So the story of MP Anil Kumar. Now this guy comes from a very very small humble background and small village in Trivandrum, near Trivandrum in Kerala. How he fights his way through a local school to an English medium school to a military school. Thereafter, he joins the National Defense Academy, excels there in whatever he does, be it outdoors, be it his PT parade, whatever we had to do there. And then he becomes an ace pilot. He's one of the very few who go and fly the fighters in the Indian Air Force. And then tragedy strikes. At the age of 24, and he meets with a very silly accident, paralyzed from his neck down, unable to move, unable to eat, unable to do anything on his own. So my book takes you through his life, from his birth to his death, 25 years after that accident. That means he died at the age of 50. So 26 years, 25 and a half years, he lived in a wheelchair and did so many things that you and I, able-bodied, so-called able-bodied people, can't even dream of doing. So this book actually is again resilience of a human being who showed everybody that, boy, whatever happens to you, if you have it here, you can do what you have to, what you want to, and achieve what you have to. So that is the second story. It's called Born to Fly. It's not about flying. It's about a guy who flies away into the yonder with after he finishes his task on this earth. So it's a very beautifully, it's a very poignant tale. It's been, I've converted it into 8 languages already. There's a talk of a movie being made on it. And it's been doing pretty well, and people have liked what I've written. It's not only all negative, it's got a lot of fun things also in the book. And so that's all about Born to Fly.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Those of us who knew MP Anil Kumar, the protagonist, I mean, he was on the Parapathetic Center at Kargil. You go and met him, he would be more cheerful than you. And what life! He wrote copiously and beautifully at that. So he made you realize how, despite all the handicaps, I mean, it was like you said, he was born to fly, and I think there were lots of tears shed when he passed away a few years ago. But backtail now, Dr. Soumya, as we move from the battlefields that Sudhir Walia is in, we came into some places where people showed resilience, different forms of heroism. Now, your protagonists are heroes of different kind. They gave India security, the ultimate form of security, you can say. But I'm so glad that you decided to tell these stories, because our scientists and diplomats, they're usually hidden behind a veil. And while I'll ask you how did you make your selection in a follow-on question, tell us how did you and how you came upon this idea of writing on India's nuclear titans. It, of course, is a story that needed to be told, but your approach, how this book happened, and how you thought of giving some sort of life, character, and color to these people that we usually are faceless in a sense. So please tell us that.
Um, Firstly, I want to thank Valley of Words and Mac City for having given us this platform. Uh, when you talk about the way it conceptualized and how it came about, this lesson itself comes from a classroom lesson. The lesson that we took almost 8 years back, and we were talking about India's role in the nuclear disarmament program. So it was a common paper that we were studying when we were doing our PhDs. And one fine day, our professor asked us to cover a story of one individual who we think has contributed to making India a nuclear power. So while doing our basic research, we actually were very ashamed of ourselves that we don't know these people. Who are these people except these famous people like Homi Bhabha or Setna or Vikram Sarabhai? There are many more which are still not in the book, but there is a list of people who are there. And we felt ashamed that we don't know about it and we are here to do PhDs. So that, that shame in us forced us to look at who are these people, the architects of India's nuclear program. And so we all just decided that we will go out in the field, meet people who are working with these individuals, interact with them, find out their stories, and bring it to life, share it with people who also deserve to know about it as much as we do. So this is where it started. It was a basic assignment that was given to us, and one fine day we were sitting in the canteen discussing our presentation on these individuals, and that's when it struck to me that, let me talk to my classmates and let's discuss whether we can come out with a book or not. So everybody was very happy that somebody thought of a book, and they readily offered their chapters to me, and then we just collected all of them together, weaved it into a book. And so one small incident here is that this book conceptualized even before the Rocket Boys came in.
Yeah.
So Rocket Boys is not really an inspiration behind the book. Rocket Boys probably got inspired by our work. Somewhere in the universe the words traveled and it came out. I would like to take the credit that way, but yeah. So this book comes before Rocket Boys, and trust me, the Rocket Boys doesn't do justice with what actually happened. It is more than what we see in the Rocket Boys. And I mean, I'm not discrediting the efforts of the directors and actors in it, but of course this book will give you more into the lives of these individuals. Also, when you talked about in the introduction that people today know so much about the cricket team and the football team, and we may not know who are these people. So again, it comes back to this point that we must know, we must take pride in who are these people who got us on the nuclear club of the world. And so that's the inspiration behind writing this book or collecting these chapters.
Lovely. I'll come to how you made this selection, and I was personally fascinated at the way you went about it. But as Ashutosh, now what Soumya says is interesting because in her case, a sense of not knowing who the people were doing PhD thesis spurred a book. Now, in your case, you're a second generation army man, perhaps army aristocracy, the guy who rode horses in NDA and all that. Your protagonist comes from another world. He is very much rooted, small town Indian boy who studies. Sudhir studies in Sainik School, Sujanpur Tira, and then joins hardware. At some point, what is it? I mean, you say heroism and all that, fine. But what made you blue blood army aristocracy fascinated with this person who came from another world, that you wrote about him and you continue writing about him in your book?
Not letting that go. Incidentally, I met Sudhir. The first time I met him was when he was stealing a cycle valve from my cycle in NDA in the equitation lines. I was in the fourth term, he was in the second term. And normally, the second termers go around picking these things, and that's when I caught him the first time. Of course, we crossed path a few times over later. But Sudhir, like you've served, and so has the gentleman on your right. In the army, it doesn't matter, in the service, it doesn't matter the background that you come from. We all merge into one pot. And especially so in the special forces or during combat, it's like a nuclear reactor or like a pressure cooker situation. And when you go through those life and death moments all together, you actually merge mentally and psychologically. I mean, you just have to look at a man and you'll understand what he's saying or speaking or thinking, right? You don't even have to talk to him. It's so in the Air Force and it's so in the Navy also, I'm sure. But yes, so it really doesn't matter the background that anyone comes from. And Sudhir was a man, like I talked about before, heroism is not about absence of fear, which he had. Incidentally, a lot of people said that Sudhir did not have fear. But in his case, he defied fear, he shattered limits, and he defined heroism. That is the hallmark of a true blood warrior, that I can say. And heroism are also not solitary acts. They are acts, combined acts together. A man cannot be a hero in his own self. He has to have an entire team doing that. And when I wrote Rambo, I also brought out the other characters because each of those characters displayed something which I said. And one of those gripping moments for me was when I spoke to some of them and I asked them, how did you do these acts of valor? Which for me also was a hair rising story to kind of hear. And the answer blew me away. They said, Saab, any one of us or anyone would do the same thing. It's just that we were in the right place at the right time. And all of us would have done it or anyone else would have done it. This coming from someone who had shown such acts of valor and heroism just kind of blew me out. There is a story about Sudhir, and I'll tell you why his acts of heroism are so different. He was psychologically so strong. There was this incident in which they had laid an ambush, and it was somewhere in the Pir Panjal, and they shot down 3 of those militants, and 2 of them got away. And without giving heed, he ran after them. He shot one as he was running, and he was running behind him. While there was a JC was running behind him and telling him to stop, he shot the first guy. The second guy ran into a small cave inside the mountain. It was very narrow. And Sudhir, without a thought, ran into that cave behind him with all his anger and all his fury. When he got inside, this man, and it was a confined space, so he had to actually crawl with his weapon and get inside the cave. When he got in, he saw this terrorist had already lifted his weapon up and he was about to shoot Sudhir Walia. And Sudhir was on his knees and his hands. Sudhir looked at him, and there was such rage and such fear and such anger in his eyes, and psychologically he so overpowered that guy. He told him, "Rakh, hatyar rakh." And that man looked at Sudhir and kept his weapon down. And Sudhir reached out to him, pulled the weapon, caught him by the scruff, and dragged him out of the cave. That's the kind of psychological strength he had, and that's the kind of inner spirit he had. So it's the story of a man like that who's not only fighting for his weapon, he's not just trained to fight, but he believes in something higher than himself and a cause higher than himself.
So, psychological strength and belief. Now, sir, that's what characterized the people who rebuilt. That's what characterized the people who rebuilt the Car Nicobar station. It's a strategic outpost, Andaman and Nicobar. We were there together last month, sort of recollecting 20 years of tsunami and the experiences. Many people who had come for that seminar, you remember, they admitted that they were coming there for the first time. You know, so even though it's this lovely strategic outpost of ours, very few people realize it's a point. And an entire air station got washed out in the tsunami. And few days later, a few good men and the angry sea, a few good men got together and put that air station back, and you're one of them. So now please, because I'll come back to Gone to Fly, but you must, since you are one of the persons involved in this, tell us some of the highlights of how the Car Nicobar air station, after being completely smashed, we've seen photographs. Your book contains those photographs. After it was completely smashed to smithereens, how did you put it all back today? Today, if you go there, it's completely different. So tell us a bit of it.
Okay. On the 26th of December 2004, I did not even know the spelling of the tsunami, to tell you very frankly. And it's my daughter who came running to me as that, what is a tsunami? Yeah, she asked me. She said it in a very different manner. Tsunami, she said. So I said, what is tsunami? So I said, I don't know what it is, beta. We'll find out. So some news was coming in in the evening that the base had been hit. My journey started right from the time I got onto the phone to find out how my friends were who were posted at the Andaman and Nicobar Islands to find out. And I don't know what happened to me. I told my boss in Western Air Command that I want to go there. So he says, don't be silly. There are a lot of people who will be sent. Don't worry. We'll send somebody. So I said, no, I want to go. Anyway, so to cut things short, I finally was on my way the next day. And we were 70 people pushed from various units in the Indian Air Force. So I was one of the volunteer kinds. But the other people who came there, if you have to shed somebody in your company or in your class or whatever, wherever you are, you would like to shed somebody who doesn't work or is not good enough, or shed the guy who you don't want around. So we were aware that there'll be problems. So because people came there and said, "Humko nahi hoga, we can't do this kind of work." But I'm telling you, all those 70 men, they were just excellent guys. They were just too good. They had problems wherever they were, but when they came and worked with us, we did not have any problems. So we stayed there for a year. My task was to get the airbase back in order in 100 days. That was a promise I made to the chief and the defense minister. So we started working. Everything was broken. By the way, the wave was 1.5 kilometer wide, about 70 feet high, and traveling at a speed of 70 kilometers per hour. So whatever came in its path was completely demolished to the ground. So when we landed there, it was like the sea had entered the entire Air Force station. There were logs of wood lying there. There were bodies floating around, animals, children, everything was all over the place. From there, we had to start reconstruction from day one. And my experiences of handling human beings, of handling a tragedy of this nature, and management of the entire resource, all three began at that point in time. And the work was 24 hours 7. The runway used to be repaired at night, used in the morning. The, the 70 men had to cook for themselves. They had to do everything that was supposed to be done on an airbase. So I remember eating from a plastic bottle like this, cut oblong, only dal and chawal for the first few days. I remember having just 1 liter bottle of water per day available to us to drink from. And with death all over, with people thinking that another tsunami is coming, because the island kept shaking. We had more than 200 quakes of 5 on the Richter all through the year. So the island was shaking all the time. You could, those little hanging bulbs used to be doing that, what you see in movies, those things, light going sideways. So with this kind of an atmosphere that one had to live in, and we had to rebuild this, I think our team really required to be one integrated whole to do what we did. And boy, we really could manage it. On the 99th day, I rang up the chief of air staff and told him, sir, we are ready. And on the 100th day, the fighters came in and they operated with us. So there was a little story that I wanted to share with you. Two small stories about, one is about morale and one is about planning. So there was this doctor who came there, and whilst we were sitting in the evening with the men, he told them that, this island is in the shape of a mushroom, and with the tsunami, with the earthquake, it is cut from the bottom, and we'll all be soon dead at the bottom of this ocean. So next morning, all the 70 men came to me and said, we don't want to work here. Why have we come here? This island is going to go. I said, nothing of this is going to happen. It is just a very small island, just 10 kilometers by 10 kilometers, very small island. So to get them back to work was one big task, you see. So morale can go down in a second, and it needs a million seconds to get it back online. The second story is about planning. The Bhuj earthquake had happened long ago, and one day we had no water available with us, and so I rang up. We had just one phone, by the way, just one satellite phone. So rang up on the satellite phone and said, no water. So next morning, one big aircraft came with 40 tons of water. So it landed, and as the water was being offloaded, one bottle fell off. So I picked it up to see. It was written Bhuj earthquake. Bhuj earthquake had passed 3 years ago, before the tsunami. So this water was lying contaminated somewhere, in bottles somewhere in some hangar, and some good man decided to send it across to us, thinking that yahan pe kya karna hai, isko bhej do. Little realizing that all those 40 tons of water was a big waste. So, people are there who, out of goodwill, he must have done it, but I don't blame him for that. But such a small mistake on somebody's part, we didn't have water again for some time. So I just thought I'll just get these little two stories out and tell you about how we get.
I think you make very good points about not just about morale and leadership, but also how we respond to humanitarian disasters, often with good intention, but sometimes that can go awry completely. And we could discuss it. Of course, there's been much more sophistication down the last couple of decades. I think COVID has taught us a lot of lessons. We come to that, but Dr. Soumya, so they talked of good men. Your story is about two good men and two remarkable women, you know. So now tell us, the audience needs to know who are the people you selected. You made these categorization. In your book, these are the people who in different ways champion or did great work for India to become a nuclear power. You divided them into scientists, uh, diplomats, politicians, strategists. So tell all of them about your list. They might not have seen your book. And how did you come about this selection? And then we'll talk.
So when we decided that, okay, this will come out as a book, and now let's get started with collecting all the essays. Of course, there were very good essays and some were not so good. Then we decided we can't stop this process in the middle. And then we started approaching people in academia, think tanks, retired diplomats, and so on and so forth. And we started asking them that, would you like to pay tribute to your, someone whom you worked or associated were with somebody who was in the field of nuclear. So then we got some very excellent authors who worked with us, like Dr. Manpreet Sethi. She had the honor of working with Commodore Sathe Singh. So she readily agreed because she felt that he was a mentor for her. And that was her way of giving tribute. So, in a way, this book also talks about tribute of us authors to these individuals. And we were also coming close to 25 years of Pokhran too.
Yeah.
So it was just the right time to come up with this theme of being giving our tributes to them. So when we started collecting, of course, we can't miss out on the star of this nuclear program, that is Homi Bhabha. So we, of course, went on with four scientists in my book. Homi Bhabha is one of them. Then there is Vikram Sarabhai. Then we have Raja Ramanna. And then, of course, the missile man, APJ Abdul Kalam. So these are four scientists in the book. Then we have statements. So when you talk about, after the whole thing is done in the lab, you need people to take decisions, make those calls which will ultimately lead to some results. So of course we can't miss out on the two important people like Mrs. Indira Gandhi and Mr. Vajpayee or Sri Vajpayee.
Yeah.
So these are the two statesmen we have touched on. And then we, of course, need strategists, because you've got the power, you've got the capability, you have executed the capabilities, but you don't know how to use it. So we wanted to have strategists in our book. So we got K. Subrahmanyam, who is also father of our present foreign minister, S. Jaishankar. Then we have Air Commodore Jasjeet Singh, and then Raja Mohan, who is a very prominent name these days when you talk about geopolitics. So we touched on these three as strategists, and then lastly we were running short of having enough diplomats, though the list runs into many, but we stick to Arundhati Ghosh. And she's actually, for me personally, she's a star of the book, and also the star of Nuclear Journey of India. So this is how I have divided the sections, and these are the individuals part of it.
Yeah, of course. Arundhati Ghosh, she championed our cause during the CTBC negotiations. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is interesting because if you were to have this kind of Ocean's 11 or this 11, this is India's nuclear limit. 11, at least as Soumya and her co-authors see it. And of course, many of you can look at it different ways, think of different people. I remember having interesting discussion with her when she had called me, and we sounded a couple of names from the Navy. So, Ashu, now we move from the lab uh, to the hills and valleys. We move from 20 years of tsunami, little more than 25 years of the nuclear blast. We are in the interesting stage, first quarter of a new century, so to say. And yet we can't and must not forget that this is also 25 years after Kargil. Now, both as an army officer who spent time on the front line, and the fact that Sudhir Walia, and I'm bringing him only to illustrate a larger point. Sudhir Walia is ADC to the chief, and he says, I want to go. Good. When Kargil happens, he says, I want to go and fight. And the army chief lets him go. I mean, that's also recognition of the spirit that every time, like what he said, that ultimately you want to wait for that one opportunity to do yourself. He does politically there and passes away 1 month after that. So, how important was Kargil? Let's frame this in larger thing. How important was Kargil for all of us? We are a generation that's come through Kargil. And how do you see, uh, you know, these sort of, it's called low intensity, but it's anything but low intensity on grounds. So how do you see that in terms of both your protagonists and give us a larger angle picture.
So I'll deal with the larger picture first. And you're talking about geopolitics and strategy. So Kargil was a thorn which had to be removed. I've served in Siachen, and I remember uh, there was this unwritten rule that at certain point of time we had to vacate posts because they were inhabitable or at heights where you could not survive. And it had been going on for years, and it was a understanding between both the parties. And somehow Musharraf, within a month of his taking over, decided that no, he wants to come in, and he put a plan into action which had been lying in the GHQ at Rawalpindi for over 20, 15 years. It had been tossed around, but it had probably been discarded because it was too ambitious a plan. So he put his people into place within hours of his taking over, and the FCNA, which was the division which was looking after the area in front of Kargil, was actually tasked, and the troops of the Northern Light Infantry were the ones who actually came in. So it had to be removed. We floundered, they floundered. Their Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif was unaware. He was briefed on maps without LC markings. So he really didn't know that his troops had crossed over. And much later, when Lieutenant Saurabh Kalia was captured and when international media started reporting, that's when he actually got to know that his troops had crossed over. And that is when the news was also broken to him. Be that as it may, Kargil defined yet again that the Indian army means business. What we did in Kashmir, or what we were doing in Kashmir for the past 35 years, was well below the horizon. And it was really not spoken about internationally. Pakistan did make a hue and cry, but it was on a different level. Kargil brought to front our mettle, our capacity to change a diverse situation, our capacity to overcome, and our capacity to conquer. It showed our resilience, it showed our strength, and the world recognized it after Kargil. Kargil was a limited operation, but the intensity of Kargil far surpassed the operations of 65 and 71 or even 47. They were long drawn operations. This was intense, short, quick, and bloody. We lost a young officer for every peak that was captured. They led near death attacks. I remember there was this battalion, I come from the Grenadiers, there was this battalion called 18 Grenadiers which went on to capture Tiger Hill, which broke the back of the Pakistanis, and they decided to withdraw back only after Tiger Hill was captured. And there was this boy who was there. He's today a brigadier. He was my cadet in the Indian Military Academy when I was an instructor, called Sachin Nimbalkar. And he, after the Kargil War, he came and stayed 2 days with me, and we had a good drinking session. And he tells me, he said, "Sir, when we were climbing up the goat track, the initial troops did not know what was on top. So they got hit and they got injured, and a lot of them died. The subsequent troops who were walking up along the same goat track were passing down bodies of their comrades who had died, and yet carrying out the attack and going in for the attack. That is the kind of heroism that we had displayed. It's unfathomable, it's mind numbing.
You have seen it from air, sir.
Yeah.
And you have written about Kargil too. So give us your perspectives on Kargil.
Okay. So we are going away from this resilience, that resilience.
Yes.
I wrote a book called 1971.1999 War Stories, in which I have brought out certain short stories from 1971 because my father was part of the Mukti Bahini, and he went into Bangladesh in May of 1971 and came out in December. So I started writing his story, and then I touched many more stories and went on to write a lot of them about 71. But then it was becoming a very thin book. So I said, let's add 1999 to that, because I was part of certain amount of planning and certain things that we did during 1999. So I got in touch with pilots who flew the missions, of people who were behind the scenes, and what was actually happening at Srinagar airfield during those days when the planning phase was happening. So incidentally, for all your information, there's a guy called Colonel Ranade, who had reported that infiltrators have crossed into India 1 year before Kargil started, 1 year before. And he was flying a small helicopter there on a mission for something else. So he had gone and reported this. Unfortunately, no heed was taken to what he said. And then, of course, the second aspect that I've brought about is at that point in time, there was a little mismatch between what the army wanted to do, where the Air Force maybe did not understand what they wanted, or the other way around. So there was at the headquarter level, there was a little bit of a problem going on, whether air support to the Indian Army is required, not required, how big is the operation, how much effort is needed. So, notwithstanding all that, finally the Air Force got pulled into doing what they did. And the first of the fighter missions were actually flown without any weapons, by the way. So there was a photo mission which was carried out by the MiG-25. It's a massive aircraft which is only used for, it flies at 80,000 feet and captures a golf ball on a golf course. So those kind of cameras. It was told to fly low and take some pictures which had never been done. So it started from there. Then there was a Canberra aircraft which was used for some more photography. And then the fighters came in. And now what happened, like what you were talking about Tiger Hill, so if you can just think of a peak like this, and if I have to hit it with pinpoint accuracy, if I miss by a meter, the ball will go a kilometer and a half away on that hill. So you can't really hit where you want to hit. So the Air Force had to do a lot of jugaad and training. The second aspect is the Indian Army was used to fighting at those altitudes because Siachen had been going on from 1984. The Indian Air Force had really not practiced firing weapons at that altitude, nor had they really trained for it. So we had to actually start using some equipment, using some jugaad, as they say, and did our firing for the first time at those altitudes.
Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're seeing something churning here. It's interesting. You see, you get so many nuggets. While talking about this, he just gently let out that his father was involved with the Mukti Baini in 71. You know, so you're getting stories within stories. We traverse from Kashmir Valley, we do Siachen, we do the Bangladesh, we do Andaman Nicobar, we do lots of laboratories. And why I'm telling you this is when you ordinarily, I've been in Mumbai for many years now. When I crossed from the naval precincts where a different world was, and you came to the Jahangir Art Gallery, or you come to Kitabkhana, or you go to any of the art places or literature places, it seemed that the world of Mumbai was devoid of all these sort of discussions. That there was some other world here talking something else, and there was another world there speaking a different lingo. Our basic idea is to try and build a bridge, you know, amongst these conversations so that people in Mumbai, some of these technicalities may pass you. But please remember the bigger picture, which is that there are lots of people around the country uh, making it possible for trade to flourish in Mumbai, you know, if I can put it in that way, or for business to happen here. So I ask you now, Dr. Soumya, uh, you know, these things happened when one of the characters, Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee, he happened to see the nuclear tests also. He happened to oversee Kargil too. And political leaders invariably have to face these challenges, which is why your book is dedicated to all those who made the Buddha smile, or laugh uproariously, as the often would say.
Yeah.
But who is your, I mean, I think you let out a little bit, but dwell a little bit on your favorite character because people like characters, you know. So dwell on your favorite character and why so.
So, when you talk about how this whole conversation is weaving a bigger picture and a bigger story, it's a tapestry of, India's geopolitics and how each one story and book actually contributes to that. When you talk about Kargil War or pre-Kargil, we have 1998 Operation Buddha smiling, and we see that how during that time India was actually not very keen on, or even before that, we go back to 70s maybe, that India was not very keen on having this nuclear capability. We were asking other nations to provide us that net safety, and Indira Gandhi went to different countries. Our leaders spoke to many powerful countries like US, Canada, America, and Britain, that you provide us nuclear net security and we may not create our own. But unfortunately, we were given sorry from all places. We were told no, and that kind of forced us to lead this path, and which is good. And I think it was good that we heard no from them, so we got our own nuclear capabilities. Yeah, so 98 happened, and there was a lot of struggle that we went through. We had to so there is a story that how the whole equipment was traveling from many parts of the country to Pokhran site, and we used the truck of onion hiding our nuclear equipments, because they were not to be the American satellites should not catch them. So there are stories like that, and that's how the 98 test becomes a very exciting story about the camouflaging done, and then Vajpayee dressed up as a scientist, and Kalam dressed up as another soldier, and they're wearing these combat dresses and not really, so they are in covertly going there and doing these operations.
Nickname.
Yes, and having nicknames, code words. So these are some of the stories that emerged out of this writing process. When you talk about who was my inspiration or who is my protagonist, I think I cannot be biased. There are many, and I would like to quote all of them. But somewhere,
You have to choose.
yes, some. So if I have to choose, I will of course talk about writing on K. Subrahmanyam. He is someone I really read closely, because I was in IDSA working as an intern, and there was annual award called K. Subrahmanyam Award, which was given to best scholars, and that was my aspiration that I should get this one day. So I started reading about who is this man K. Subrahmanyam, and I came across so many literature by him, on him, and he was very fondly called as the Kissinger of India, and he was very strong headed, and I think that runs in the blood. We see Jaishankar,
Realist.
yeah, and very realist, and having that bold attitude, and very patriotic in nature. So he is someone I really looked closely, and I was inspired by seeing how despite India not being a developed nation, stood against these developed countries and the nuclear club, and stood for India and said that why we need to have a nuclear weapon. And that boldness, I think, was very much required at that time. When he also said at one place that, a nuclear weapon is like $1 billion bill, which you may not use ever, but you need to have it, because that's when you can sort of say that you have arrived, you are here, and people will respect you for that. Again, the whole discussion on how the nuclear doctrine was written, his role has been greatly, we should know that he played a very great contribution in that, and a very significant role while doing it. So, one story I would like to tell here to everybody about K. Subrahmanyam is that um he was sitting in his office. He came to office. It was raining heavily in Delhi, and he just came in. He took off his clothes and wore very simple, maybe just a sando and shorts or something. And he was drying his clothes and sitting on the floor so that he doesn't wet the chair. So he was sitting on the floor going through his paper, and somebody walked in, and they said, "Where is the sir? Where is Mr. Subramanyam?" And he said, "I am Subramanyam." So the lady was shocked, and then later on she realized the power of this man, and then she called him Bomb Mama. So he was called as Bomb Mama by his colleagues, and I interviewed his wife, and she also gave out a lot of interesting stories about how, despite being from a very patriarchal society, he was a feminist in his own way. Not like he just encouraged his wife to carry on with her ambitions, learning dance and music. He walked barefoot to schools. So there are a lot of stories like that. And of course, Arundhati Ghosh remains the ferocious lady, and we should not miss out in this panel. And the way she was bold, she was patriotic, and she was ahead of her time. So these are some of my favorites in the book. Yeah.
I'd like to throw it open to the audience. Please ask questions to anyone who what, and let's hear it from you.
So while they're thinking of something, I wanted to add about Raja Ramanna. He loved green chilies, and whenever he traveled to Europe, he would carry a box of green chilies with him because he wouldn't find spicy food out there. So that is also mentioned in our book. Like some of those kinds of anecdotes are there.
Secret weapon.
Yes.
When Kargil happened, Kargil was my graduation. And the only exposure, see, living in Mumbai, we are in a very sheltered environment away from everything. I only had one experience with the army that was, I did not even know, right in my building. I was in school, maybe third, fourth grade, and in my building, Major R. Parmeshwar, he was a part of the action against entity.
IPKF.
And our road was named after him. And till that time, I did not even know something like that existed right there. And then again, Major Ranjit Muthanar, my neighbor. I did not know they had a son in the army. So we were that ignorant. The first time we actually came to terms or we actually had an exposure to anything, I thank the media for that because that was the time cable TV was in and that was when Kargil happened and we got to know. So today when you all were talking about all this, even Pokhran and all that, we had a debate competition and we knew nothing. So, pro versus against the nuclear testing. So, I want to thank you all because it was like nostalgia, it was a rehash, and I definitely want to read further on this because I think getting a true account about all this from the horse's mouth actually will make a lot of difference to our perspectives. So, thank you so much for this.
So I was actually a part of the discussion at MGMA in the morning. That was too much about development and not covering a lot of themes that I think this discussion covered very well, which is about courage and valor and stories like this that of course need to come before the public. My question to you is that how do we build an India that respects its veterans? Because we see it very starkly in the US.
Yeah.
In today's day and age, we have access to so much on social media, so much things that we see. How they respect their veterans. You cannot be a veteran and not go unnoticed in any space in the US.
Look, it's a fantastic question. I'll have all the panelists answer it, but very frankly, there can be another seminar. So, you'd like to go?
Let the lady start first. Let
the lady start.
Yeah.
So, incidentally, she's the wife of an army officer.
So she should.
And also, right now in the audience, my sister-in-law is here, who is also wife of an army officer who was in Kargil in Tiger Hill and Dras. So she's also here with us, sitting behind. When you talk about respecting veteran, I think it's a very important thing that idea or that sense of respecting them is also very important. And you raised it. And very rightly so, that when you were in US, I have been in US and I saw during the Vietnam War day, the veterans were taken out, they were shown, and the cadets came to give a honorary salute to them. So first thing maybe that we can do as a country or a nation is, if you know someone next door or in your locality, just go and wish them on the important days like Vijay Diwas or even 71 war happened. So those memorial days, you must at least pay tribute to them, thank them. You must write about their stories. If you know them, go and spend some time. Oral history has a lot of power. So all these stories that we have brought together has oral history also in it. So if you can write about it, blog, share, things like that, of course, write to your state government that they should also organize such things like Vietnam War is done by America. Why not we have Vijay Divas at a local level and not just by the armed forces. So these are some of the steps maybe I can think of immediately. But of course, first thing or a small step that you can take is going and recognizing them, thanking them, and also talking about it, sharing their stories to your friends and family.
You know, there is this last scene in one of those First Blood movies where someone asks him, "What do you want from the nation?" And he says, "Just love us as much as we love the nation." So I think if all of us, uh, all of us are good citizens and all of us do what we are supposed to do, you would be contributing to the nation and you would be contributing to the services and to the army or to the services equally. Uh, Also, one last thought is that, in our daily lives, in our run up of everything that we do, we talk about mutual funds and stock markets crashing in our lives and our careers and families. How many of us actually think for the nation? In a day, in a month, in a quarter, just think for the nation. Even if you can just think for the nation in your entire day or in an entire week, I think you would have done a hell of a lot of service to the nation. If you can think that, there will be a certain amount of contribution that will come from you. You will think positive and you will come up with things. Think for the nation. Spare some time for the nation in your routine, in your life. Keep that away.
Just don't like when you go to the airport or they announce that so and so veterans you can board in first. They've stopped doing that already. And in the US, when you go, moment they know you're a veteran, a different line generally appears and you just kind of go through your customs or wherever you have to go. It's not that the army man wants that to happen. It is not that. It is the feeling when there's a place called village Takli, Sainik Takli. I don't know, in Maharashtra only, near Kolhapur. I don't know how many of you know about it. The entire village has contributed more than 7,000 men to the armed forces right from Second World War. How has it happened? How has it happened? It is because it has become a culture in that small village. So when I went there, every small child to the big man was saluting me because he knew I was because they were so happy to have me around. But just change the chapter. I do hundreds of interviews of wannabe people who want to join the armed forces, and there are people in the interiors of a country who don't know whether the army wears green or the navy wears white or whatever. They don't even know fauj kya hoti hai. So this knowledge needs to spread to every corner, and people need to know what the armed forces are doing. That's what I feel. The education should go down to the grassroots level.
Thank you. I'll attempt to answer very briefly. What's your name?
Pratila Wali.
From Bombay?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Let me ask you a simple question. Has Bombay seen war?
I think it had. Like in some point in time, it's been here long enough.
No. I'm talking after independence.
26
Yes? Right?
ideological war.
No, forget the ideological. I'm just saying. Now, most Mumbaikars don't associate war with Mumbai. You'll appreciate lots of things, right? Some have rightly brought out the security threat 26/11. There were bomb blasts in 1993, right? There were blasts in 2003. There were the train blasts. But go back. 1961, the Goa liberation happened through ships that were based in Bombay. Your Karachi attack ships were all based in Mumbai. All the ships that attacked Karachi and did that spectacular attack were Mumbai based. The ship that you lost of Diu INS Kukri was Mumbai based. The families were all staying in Mumbai. The naval sailors who revolted against the British were on Mumbai was the epicenter. 400 Mumbaikars lost their lives in 1946. That's the same number as people who died in Jallianwala Bagh. We remember the Jallianwala Bagh, and we should, but nobody remembers the 1946 naval uprising. There is a memorial to them here at Cooperage. I don't know if it even figures in the Lonely Planet. The point I'm trying to tell you is Mumbai has seen war. I'm not going to take the tack that they do. Airport mein ye karo, wo sab chahiye. Simply coming from a point of view of literature, as a Navy person, I'm perfectly comfortable, not being recognized for being a Navy man. What I want is a larger recognition of what the armed forces do. And that comes through books, conversation, literature. The biggest problem we have is that these people have written wonderful books, but they don't sell. They don't get published. They're not read, right? So we want more conversations, more reading, more people to do. You take a call independently after that, whether we're doing good, bad, and weak. But at least, hey. So the way I see it, and in a lit fest, the way I want to bring out, if you want to honor your armed forces in any way, know more about them. And to know more about them, movies, OTT, all are very good, but books are the best. So do read a lot.
I'll just take
Sure.
30 seconds. I want to leave a moment of inspiration. Someone had talked about inspiration and they just came to my mind and I thought I must share this. During the Kargil War, during the attack on Zulu Top, when Sudhir Walia was climbing up and they had to do a rope climb and a sheer rock face climb, where every gram counted. There was a man, his number 2, who carried the Indian tricolor instead of carrying dry rations and emergency rations, which he would have eaten once he did the attack. And he was so convinced that they will win. They captured Zulu Top and then he took out the flag and he gave it to a soldier and said, unfurl it. So Sudhir asked him, कि साहब यहाँ पे अभी कौन देखेगा, जो पाकिस्तानी थे वो तो मर गए और बाकी तो हम सभी हैं. He said, साहब इनकी रूह जब जन्नत जाएगी तो ये आखिरी मेमोरी लेके जाएगी, ये हिंदुस्तान का झंडा उन्होंने देखा था. That's the kind of fervor they had and that's the kind of inspiration they carried.
We must thank our host, Kitab Khana, for giving us this lovely venue, this very buzzing place. We must thank them for that. We must thank all our audience who's come here. So, on that note, my co-authors, Colonel Ashutosh Kale, Dr. Soumya, Air Commodore Sathe, representing different strands of thought. Srikant Kessler getting in a bit of the Navy angle. But thank you so much and thank this wonderful, wonderful audience.